Welcome back. Let's continue with a little file work here. We learned how to read from a file, and you saw we did that by setting the file name of your file in its directory, using a file reader, and using a buffered reader object. And that buffer reader object gave us the nice method readLine, which can read one line in from the file until you run out of lines to read. Now it's going to be very simple when you go to write to the file. Very similar idea. So let's take a look at the writing example. So in the writing example, we do almost the same setup for the whole thing, except instead of readers, we're using writers. So you'll see here I still get the current directory, system get property user directory, and full name of the file. You can name your file here. Now, where do these files have to be? Just a reminder, if this is my project, sample read write, you can see where the notepad files have to be or the text files have to be. Okay, they're right there in the project folder for this to work. Now, when I go back to the code, I'm going to see here, same basic idea as the reader. I make a file writer, giving it the file name. And even though we could write to the file with that, it's easier to write to the file with a buffered writer. So I make a buffered writer object, and I give it the file writer, which is attached to that file we just sort of connected to for writing. Now you're ready to go. So I'm going to use that buffered writer, which for some reason I've called BR here. Even though it's a writer, I should have called it maybe BW. But here we go. You just go br.write, and you give it a string to write in there. Now, you're going to notice this seems pretty easy to understand. There's the string, but there's this little part at the end, \n. What this \n does is it does this part to your file. So when it writes that string, here are some numbers. We want to take the cursor and simulate the enter key and come back to the beginning of the next line. Well, coming back to the beginning of the next line, for Java and Windows, you can add a \n. It's a special character, and it represents the new line. And so it's basically sort of imitating the enter key and bringing you down to the new line. If you don't put that in there, and you did write this and write that, then what happens is you get this. You get everything just being written continuously on one line, and you never move to a new line. Usually that's probably not what you want to do, so that's why we're showing you the new line character here. Okay, we'll put stuff on different lines. After I write those two strings, I'm going to loop through my array, which I filled in some other code in this file. So it has numbers in it. And I just start at 0. I go through the entire array. And you can see here, I have to write a string. So this line here, I grab the number out, number k. And remember, this was a simple way to convert to a string if you have a number. So I go quote, quote, plus, maybe that's 8. Quote, quote, plus 8 is going to be 8, the string. So I've got my string, temp. br, write, temp, plus, add a new line. So it goes to the next line. So when it goes to write the next number, it's on a new line. And you can see how those new lines add up. And when the whole loop is done, I do one final text writing there. This is the end. I end it with a \n. Okay, you should end it with a new line. It's debatable. The code usually will work in your programs even if you don't end it with a \n. But some people will get very technical and say, but if you're using this type of computer and this kind of system, it needs the \n. Don't worry about it, just for our beginner coding here. Put the \n, leave it out. It's still going to work. And then, just like with reading, you want to close the file when you're done. Okay, you don't want to leave files open. And closing the buffered writer will also close the connection to the file that it's connected to. And that's it. You'll see the file made. Looks just like that. And there's our \n. Just brings us to an empty line at the end of the file. And that's really it. If you now used a program in conjunction with that to read from the file, you should remember in your head, okay, the first two lines were text, so you could read those out, put them in text boxes. Then you'd remember, hey, the next couple things in there are numbers, so you could read those, and maybe you read them into an array. Maybe you read them to integer, double variables, you store them. And then if you read the last line, that can be read into a string, a text box, something like that. So it is important when you're doing little programs and you plan on saving data, remember the order that you wrote stuff for now, right? It's a good beginner thing, right? Know the order you wrote it. I should also point out here, notice that this is all inside of a try to do statement and catch an exception in case an error occurs when trying to write to the disk drive or the hard drive or your USB stick, right? So you'll see this whole thing was in a try with the catch, okay, in case there's an error. What else can we show you? Maybe this up here, the two imports that are needed, right? The buffered reader import and the file writer, sorry, the buffered writer import and the file writer import from the input output packages. And that's really it. When we actually give this one a little go, you can just see this little read one run here. It's just going to read that text file. Whoops, file writer. Let's give it a run. I random fill. There, the first number is 66. Write that to a file. Now when I go here, I pop that open, and there, hey, what happened? Why is it 66 there? Sorry, that was the old file. And there you go. I open the file numbers, and there's that same number list that I just saved. So everything works as expected. That's file writing, okay, the basics. It should be noted, if the file already exists, this wipes it clean and writes right over it, okay, when you're working. Now, if you're wondering, can you add on to a file instead of erasing the old data? There is a way to add on to a file. You know, if you want to do that for your final projects, you can pop onto Google and say, I know how to write, how do I append? Okay, it's called appending to the file. And it's just a little change you have to make up here. That's really it for writing. We got a quick, simple little challenge or two for you to do with this, just to see that you know how to do it. It's a great one to throw into your final projects to save user data. Thanks for watching.